You look at him and you see a king. You see potential. You see a depth of soul that matches your own. You see the one person who can meet you in the fire of transformation. But when he looks at you, he does not just see a queen. He sees a mirror, and in that mirror, he does not see his greatness. He sees his failure. There is a silence between you right now, or perhaps a distance that feels like a canyon. You are the holder of space, waiting on the edge, wondering why he has retreated. You wonder, if the connection is so deep, why does he run? If the love is so real, why does he act as if he is unworthy of it? You have analyzed his childhood. You have studied attachment theory. You have meditated on the connection. But there is one specific frequency you may have missed. It is the frequency of shame, not guilt. Guilt is about what he has done. Shame is about who he believes he is. He is hiding from you, not because he doesn't love you. He is hiding because he fears that if he steps into the light of your presence, you will finally see what he believes to be true, that he is a fraud, that he is empty, and that he cannot provide what you deserve. Today, we are going to walk into the dark room of the masculine psyche. We are going to deconstruct the paralysis of the unawakened counterpart. We are going to move beyond the tired labels of runner and chaser and understand the mechanics of his shame. And most importantly, we will explore how you can stop carrying the weight of his worthiness so you can return to your own throne. Let us begin. To truly understand the silence that currently stands between you, we must first descend into the architecture of the masculine burden. We must look at the blueprint of his psyche before we can understand the ruins you feel you are standing in, left alone. To understand his retreat, we have to look far beyond his current circumstances or his behavior in the last few weeks. We must look at the ancient wiring that runs beneath the surface of his conscious mind. For thousands of years, the masculine identity has been tethered to a single, brutal metric, which is provision. In the ancient sense, this was purely physical. Can he hunt for the tribe? Can he build the shelter? Can he keep the perimeter safe from predators? To provide was to exist. To protect was to matter. If a man could not do these things, he was not just single or unsuccessful. He was a liability to the survival of the group. He was, in a very literal sense, worth nothing. While we have evolved into a modern, digital, and complex society, that primal instinct has not vanished. It has merely mutated. It has distorted into a nervous system response that equates his worthiness of love with his ability to conquer his environment. Many of the men you connect with, specifically these deep, soulful men who seem to carry the weight of the world in their eyes, are walking around with a fractured sense of self. They may be successful on paper, or they may be struggling to find their purpose, but the internal dialogue remains the same. He feels he must be a king before he is allowed to let in a queen. He believes he must have the kingdom built, the walls fortified, and the treasury full before he can open the gates. And then, in the middle of this internal construction site, he meets you. You enter his life not as a project, but as a force of nature. You are the divine feminine. You are intuitive, emotionally vast, and spiritually solvent. You have likely done years of shadow work to clear your own vessel. You have faced your demons and integrated them into your being. When he first enters your field, he feels an initial rush of profound relief. It feels like coming home. He thinks that finally, here is a place to rest. Here is a woman who actually sees me. But that relief is quickly replaced by a quiet, creeping terror. This happens because he knows, deep down in his bones, that he cannot hide from you. Psychologically, we call this exposure anxiety. When an unawakened counterpart meets a woman who stands fully in her power, his nervous system begins to ring an alarm bell. He looks at your emotional intelligence, and he suddenly becomes painfully aware of his own emotional illiteracy. He looks at your spiritual connection, and he feels the echo of his own spiritual hollowness. He looks at your infinite capacity to love, and he feels his own paralyzed incapacity to receive it. He does not look at you and think that you are amazing and he wants to be with you. He looks at you and thinks that you are amazing and he is going to disappoint you. This is the tragedy of the unhealed masculine. He would rather leave you now while he still retains some shred of dignity than wait for the inevitable moment when you realize he is not the hero you thought he was. In his mind, he is leaving to protect you. It is a twisted form of love, a protective mechanism gone wrong. He is protecting his ego, certainly, but in his own distorted logic, he is also sparing you the burden of his failure. He feels he has nothing to offer you. If he cannot offer you financial stability, he feels shame. If he cannot offer you emotional clarity, he feels shame. If he cannot offer you the spiritual leadership you crave, he feels shame. We must be very clear about what this emotion is. Shame is not guilt. Guilt is about what he has done. Guilt says, I made a mistake. Shame is about who he is. Shame says, I am a mistake. Shame is not a quiet emotion, it is a silencer. It shuts down the throat chakra. It constricts the chest. It closes the heart. It makes a man go cold and distant. So when he goes silent, it is not because he does not care about you. It is because he is drowning. He is overwhelmed by the disparity between the man you see, the king, and the man he feels himself to be, the fraud. He fears that if he steps into the light of your presence, the illumination will not celebrate him, but rather it will expose him. He retreats into the shadows, not because he prefers the dark, but because the dark is the only place where he feels safe from the crushing weight of expectation. He is hiding from you because he does not yet know how to be the man he knows you deserve. Here is the paradox you must understand to reclaim your own peace of mind. It is a shift in perception that changes the entire landscape of your connection. You have likely been told that love heals all things. You have been told that if you just love him enough, his walls will crumble and he will feel safe. But there is a physics to spiritual connection that is often ignored. When a high-frequency soul connects with one who is still wrestling with his own worth, the dynamic is not one of simple comfort. It is one of exposure. You must realize that your light is actually the catalyst for his retreat, but not in the way you think. You have been conditioned to believe that you should dim your light to make others comfortable, or that if you are too intense, you will scare him away. That is a lie. that is a betrayal of your own soul. You must never dim your radiance. However, you must understand the mechanics of what happens when a high voltage light shines into a dark room. When you bring your love, your radical acceptance, and your high spiritual vibration into his life, you act as a floodlight. A floodlight does not judge what it illuminates. It simply reveals what is there. It reveals the beauty, the architecture, and the strength. But it also reveals the dust in the corners. It reveals the cobwebs, the cracks in the foundation, and the clutter he has pushed into the shadows, so he does not have to look at it. You are not judging him. You are simply loving him. But your love is so pure and your vision so clear that it acts as a contrast agent. He looks at your emotional purity, and suddenly his own vices look darker than they ever did before. He looks at your commitment to truth, and his own small lies or omissions become unbearable to his conscience. He's not running from you. He is running from the version of himself that is reflected in your eyes. He feels unworthy because you are vibrating at the frequency of his highest potential, while he is still stuck in the frequencies of his past history. This creates a cognitive dissonance in his mind. He sees the king you believe he is, but he feels like the pauper he fears he has become. This is where the divine feminine often makes a critical, heartbreaking error. You sense his shame, you feel his withdrawal and his pain, and your instinct, your beautiful, nurturing, maternal instinct, is to try and fix it. You move toward him, you try to reassure him, you pour more love into the void. You tell him that he is enough. You tell him that you do not care about his money, his status, or his mistakes. You try to talk him out of his feelings, but you must listen closely to this truth. You cannot talk a man out of his shame. In fact, your reassurance often makes the shame worse. When you try to save him from his own feelings of unworthiness, you unintentionally validate his belief that he is broken. You step out of the role of the divine partner, and you step into the role of the mother. This shift in polarity is fatal to romantic attraction. A man cannot desire a mother. He can only depend on her, or eventually rebel against her. When you try to smooth over his rough edges, you rob him of his own agency. You signal to his subconscious that you do not trust him to handle his own darkness. You signal that he is too weak to face his own demons, so you must face them for him. This deepens his sense of inadequacy. He feels he has failed not only to provide for you, but now he has failed to even manage his own internal emotional landscape. The shame he feels is not a mistake. It is not something to be medicated away with sweet words. It is necessary. It is the friction required to burn away the false ego. He needs to feel the agonizing gap between who he is and who he is meant to be. That gap is the fire of his initiation. If you try to bridge that gap for him, you rob him of his evolution. He feels unworthy because in his current state, he effectively is unworthy of the union you both are destined for. This is not because his soul is unworthy, but because his ego is still in the driver's seat. He needs to rise. He needs to conquer himself. And he cannot rise if you are carrying him. He cannot find his strength if you are constantly acting as his crutch. You must allow the shame to do its work. You must allow the alchemical process of the dark night of the soul to burn through his defenses. It is painful to watch. just as it is painful to watch a butterfly struggle to emerge from a cocoon. But if you cut the cocoon open to save the butterfly from the struggle, you cripple its wings. You must love him enough to let him struggle. You must respect him enough to let him face his own shadow without your interference. This is the only way he transforms from the man who hides in shame into the king who stands in his power. So, what is the practical application of this profound realization? How do you love a man who is hiding in shame without joining him in the dark? The answer lies not in doing more, but in a radical recalibration of your own energy. You must make 3 specific internal shifts to move from a state of waiting to a state of sovereign power. These are not manipulation tactics to get him back. These are spiritual boundaries that restore your dignity and create the only environment in which a man can truly evolve. The first shift is to become the lighthouse, not the searchlight. You must understand the energetic difference between these 2 sources of illumination. A searchlight is frantic. It scans the dark waters, moving back and forth, hunting for something. It is invasive. It asks, "Where are you? Why aren't you here?" It carries the frequency of anxiety and lack. When you direct this energy toward a man who is already feeling unworthy, it feels like an interrogation. It blinds him. It makes him want to hide deeper in the caves of his own psyche. A lighthouse, however, operates on a completely different principle. It is stationary. It is grounded deeply in the bedrock. It rotates on its own axis, shining its light regardless of whether ships are coming or going. It does not chase the ships. It does not scream at the storm. It simply stands. You must center your energy back into your own column of light. Stop chasing him with your mental energy. Stop investigating his silence. When he is finally ready to navigate the dark waters of his shame, he needs a fixed point to guide him home, not a moving beam that follows his every move. The second shift requires you to release the need to be needed. This is perhaps the most difficult shadow work for the divine feminine. Many of us, consciously or unconsciously, derive our worth from being the healer. We want to be the one who saves him. We want to be the exception to his rule. But this is a trap of the ego. As long as you need him to need you, you are feeding the dynamic of weakness. You are essentially saying that he is broken and you hold the glue. You must trust him enough to let him struggle. You must respect his resilience. Trust that if he is truly your counterpart, he possesses the internal machinery to process this shame. When you withdraw your fixing energy, you create a vacuum. In physics and in spirituality, nature abhors a vacuum. When you stop doing the emotional work for him, he will eventually have to step in to fill that space with his own strength. You are not abandoning him. You are handing him back his own sword. The third shift is the gaze of belief. This is a quantum shift in how you observe him. In the realm of quantum mechanics, the observer affects the observed. When you think of him or when you interact with him, you are transmitting a frequency. If you look at him with eyes of pity, worry, or fear, you are energetically confirming his incompetence. Worry is a form of prayer for what you do not want. When you worry about him, you are visualizing his failure. You must stop this immediately. Instead, You must hold the vision of his highest self. You must see the king, even when he is acting like the pauper. You do not need to say this out loud to him. You simply need to know it. Hold the frequency that says, I know who you are. I know you can handle this. I am not afraid of your darkness. This is the most powerful signal you can send to a man's nervous system. It creates a container of safety where shame cannot survive. When he feels that you are not afraid of his shadow, he begins to realize that perhaps he does not need to be afraid of it either. You become the mirror of his potential rather than the mirror of his past. By holding this space, you do not just wait for him to return to you. You invite him to return to himself. The divine masculine is currently undergoing a massive recalibration. He is being asked to drop the armor of the provider and pick up the mantle of the partner. This is terrifying for him. It involves a death of the old self. His shame is the funeral pyre of that old self. You, the anxious heart, the holder of space. Your exhaustion comes from trying to manage a process that is not yours to manage. Put down the weight. He does not need you to save him. He needs you to believe in him until he believes in himself. And the best way to do that is to live your life so fully, so vibrantly, and so completely that you become the undeniable proof that it is safe to shine. Let him hide if he must. Let him wrestle with his shadows. You stay in the light, not to wait for him, but because the light is where you belong. And when he is ready to put down the heavy shield of his shame, he will know exactly where to find you. Walk in your worth.